What's up, y'all? So I just got back from vacation. I left for like 7 days. And my main concern when I was gone is how on earth am I going to keep my garden watered so that everything doesn't dry out or just go crispy under this super hot Texas sun that we have? And so I was reading the comments on my last video where I showed kind of like the update of my garden, all the progress, and some fruiting and just everything that's been going on since I first planted in April. Well, one of y'all in the comments got on to me and y'all are like, you should really consider setting up a drip irrigation system. I was like, how can I take this even further? Because I don't want a complicated setup. I don't want something that I have to even think about. So what can I do? I went on Amazon and I noticed they had a lot of solar drip irrigation systems. So that's what I ended up using. And I used the Ansito solar powered drip irrigation system. It was pretty easy to install. It was good quality and it worked. So obviously, as a new gardener myself, I want to share that with y'all because I was actually pretty impressed. This is my setup. I got this rain barrel on Amazon. It cost me about $150. And that sounds really expensive, I know, but when I got it, I was actually really impressed by the quality. So I have zero regrets about that 150. It was super worth it. And the solar drip irrigation system, which I'll tell y'all everything that comes with that, this cost me $90. This complete set comes with one solar panel, one system controller, one main tube that's really thick that brings water from your water barrel or whatever container you have into the controller. On the end, it has a water filter, so if anything gets into your water, it's not going to suck that up. You also get this pre-installed water level sensor that goes from the controller all the way to your rain barrel. And then I just drop that in and it senses the water level. And this is the skinny tube here. That's that connection. So you also get like 30 meters of tubing that goes from the outlet on your controller all the way to your garden beds. So then you also get 30 of these water drippers, 30 of these tube connectors, this little anti-siphon mechanism so that the water doesn't backflow back into your rain barrel. What I didn't use in the kit was these really big connectors for splitting off this little main pipe here. Like if you want to connect water barrels to each other, you can use this to split off the main pipe. That's why this is so chunky and matches this size here because it's meant to connect to this tubing. But I didn't need that, so I didn't use it. The other thing I didn't use was this pack of screws that it came with if you want to like mount this system controller here. I didn't find that necessary, and I feel like my house isn't even really close enough to my garden beds to do that, so I didn't use that part. Now, the solar panel was already set up and hooked to the controller, so I didn't have to worry about this, but following the system. So as you can see, my skinny out tube goes from the controller and into my garden bed. So let me come over this way and show y'all how I got it set up. So basically, like I said before, this thing comes with 30 drippers. And so I pretty much have them strategically placed. My green bean plants, I pretty much have these in clusters. So if I have two plants close to each other, I've got one dripper so that they can share, as you can see here. And then my cornhills, where I have 3 to a section, I have one dripper per those. So in this bed, that's pretty much how everything is set up. So I'm gonna take this apart and show y'all exactly how I did it. This tube was all together, which meant that I had to cut this in order to install the T connector. So once I had my tube and I cut it, all I did was I took this little piece here, the T connector, and I put one part of the tube in one end, and then I took the other cut part of the tube and I stuck it in here. And then I had cut off right here, another little piece of tube. And so I put that on the end, and then I took my dripper and I stuck that in the bottom. And then I took the dripper and I just stuck that in the hole right next to the root zone of my plant. It was pretty much just that simple. As you can see, we have dripping, so that's all good. This was my main concern. Like, I felt like if I set this up and the drippers didn't actually work, I was going to be so hot. So I actually took a long time with this system, and I made sure that I really had this where I wanted it positioned, because y'all, it took so long to set up all of these drippers, and I was not about to go through and like disconnect all this tubing. So I am pretty happy with the fact that this thing works. So like I said before, this is 30 meters of tubing, so it's dang near impossible to run out, which that's one thing that I love about this system. They give you plenty of materials. Like, you will not run out unless you just have like the biggest beds on earth. You won't be running out anytime soon. Okay, and then the main thing I wanted to show y'all is that this pump is powerful. So this little line that I have running where the water is kind of dipping down through the tube and then it has to kind of go back uphill, no problem at all, y'all. No problem. They are dripping. So this thing is capable of going a little bit uphill. So it's got a pump and it's going to do it. I currently have this set for 20 minutes of watering every 2 days, but you can definitely change this. So if you want to, like, let's say you want to do 30 minutes of watering. Is that 30? Okay, yeah. So you can do that and it'll adjust. And this is for the actual schedule. Right here that says interval time. So if you want to do something different, I currently have it set for 2 days. So you can set it for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, like literally whatever you want to do. This pretty much has it. And it also has hours too. The sun is just barely popping through, and as you can see, we're powered up, so it's good to go. All in all, I would definitely recommend the Ansito solar powered drip irrigation from Amazon. I mean, it does what it says it's going to do. You get a ton of materials. Like I said before, 30 meters of this tubing that actually goes in your garden bed, 5 meters of main line for bringing water out of the barrel and into your garden bed, 30 drip emitters, 30 connectors. Like, you will pretty much want for nothing when you get this system. So that's what I love about it. I also really like the quality of the tubing. It's really dense and thick. Even the skinny wiring is very durable. It has flexibility, there's give, but it's not flimsy, which I really appreciate. I feel like unless some animal was just like attracted to this tubing and decided it wanted to eat it up, that's pretty much the only way it would get damaged. But outside of that, like, it's extremely durable. The other thing I like is how set it and forget it this is. So with the controller system, as y'all saw, I can do a variety of watering schedules depending on if I want this to drip for 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Even if I want this to drip for a certain number of hours, you can set that to your liking. You can set that to the requirements for your actual plants and how much water they need. So I really do feel like the system is set up to be customizable, which is great. The other thing I like is that this is so like plug and play, meaning, do y'all remember Legos? Like Legos, you can pretty much build anything. You can attach the Legos to another Lego to create different things. I felt like setting this up reminded me of playing with Legos. You can pretty much get as creative as you want with the setup. So if you want your tubing to snake through a particular way, it's up to you. All you have to do is cut the tubing and place the little connectors and the drippers according to how you see it in your head, and it'll work. The other thing I really appreciate is that the solar panel worked even on a cloudy day. I mean, I don't really know much about solar panels and how they work. I'm pretty much just now learning, but I thought what was going to happen is if the sun wasn't shining like it is now, then you get no water. But no, like even if there's just a few rays peeking through the clouds, this system is going to catch that, use the energy, and put water into your bed. So that for me was like perfect. The last thing I'll say that I loved about this system is simply the fact that it worked, right? Not just on the test run, but all the way through. So like I said before, I went on a 7-day vacation, and the main thing I was looking to see when I came back is, okay, I filled up the water to a specific level. If the water is still at that level when I come back, then I know this thing didn't work. But when I came back, I noticed that the water had dropped a level. So that means that it actually did use the water. And so that means that my soil stayed moist, my plants stayed watered, and that was the biggest concern to me, especially living in Texas. It's so hot, it's so dry. And I know one of y'all was getting on to me in the comments of like, you need to mulch, you need to mulch. Okay, listen, as you can see, I still haven't mulched, okay? I've been busy. So yeah, just knowing that the system had my back, even though I hadn't mulched, that was pretty much everything to me. Okay, so while overall I can recommend this system, there are some things that I didn't like about it. And I would say the first thing is that when I opened up the instruction booklet, the instructions weren't really that clear. Like all you get is a diagram of what the entire setup should look like at the end. And then you get a paragraph of instructions that just generally say what to do, but it doesn't show you individual pictures of how to do it, how to connect things, which tube goes where. And so, for example, when I was connecting the tubing to the in and out ports on the controller, I was like, okay, so does the thick tube go on the in part? Does the skinny tube go on the out part? Eventually I figured it out, of course, but I feel like it would have been so much faster and simpler and efficient if they had just told me in the instruction booklet. But I understand today that the new trend is to do less as far as instructions with these things that you might get off of Amazon or even IKEA. So I think that's something to watch out for. But if you watch this video, it should be pretty clear how everything is set up. So yeah, I mean, at least you'll have an easier time than I did. So that's good for you. Me, I struggled a little bit for sure. And then I would say the second thing that I didn't like was that the controller didn't seem to be as durable as I would like. It's plastic, of course, but it felt like more of a cheap build than something that would be really high quality and durable. The reason that I ended up still getting this is because people explained how to treat it through the Amazon reviews. So people were saying, yeah, this thing is not going to be able to take you like dropping it, banging it around, X, Y, and Z. So I just made sure that I didn't do any of those things. And as you can see, it still works. It worked for the 7 days. So all in all, even though the build quality is not that great of the water system controller, I would say that if you're really careful with it, you'll still get good results. But now that we've gone through everything, I just have one last question for y'all. How do you water your garden? Do you hand water? Do you use like an overhead spray irrigation system? Have you installed a drip irrigation system? Do you use solar? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what other people are doing. I just wanted to do this because I was tired of watering myself and I don't want to think about it. So I'm like, if I can find something solar powered and automatic, that is literally going to be the best solution for me. But yeah, I'm just curious to see what y'all say. So drop a comment below. Tell me how you water your garden. And until next time, happy gardening.
It's clear that the Trump administration wants to increase foreign investment in the United States. Trump has been very clear that he wants foreign
All right. Well, welcome to this pop-up show. I just got off a panel over at Chocolate Earth, and I had a whale of a time. And unfortunately, uh, I am got a couple beers left, and talking on a panel. This is why I never do it. All the things I could have done better, could have said better, could have made better points, and I'm just self-critiquing. But in the meantime, um, I don't know, just gonna watch some things I want to watch. And Dirty, salute. It is good to see you as always. I'm just can't sleep, so I'm being random here.
Italy feels like freedom. And that's a lie because what they actually feel is a sense of relief because living in
Oh my goodness.
are living inside of empire's control room. Not
And
because
this woman
Italy is
tends to be
actually
weird.
empire, but because empire is actually coded into everything. Religion, conservative ideological judgment,
Hmm.
the quiet delusion of whiteness, and conformity presented as normal. And power isn't loud, but it is everywhere. It's completely invisible, but it's far easier to focus on aesthetics. We like to believe that we find relief in the slow mornings, the quieter pace of life, beautiful spaces, history, the art, people who seem rooted in something. And that is the script. But our relief is actually grounded in what we feel like empire gives us a lack of chaos, their control, not having to figure it out for yourself. And that relief is very easy to mistake for liberation because everything here has already been decided. What life should look like, how people should behave, what roles make sense, and where you fit in. It's already structured. And that structure feels somehow beautiful. So you can get lost into the aesthetic because it actually feels like you've stepped in something more real, something intentional, something more aligned. But what if that feeling really is not freedom? What if it's just familiarity? Familiarity with hierarchy, familiarity with order, familiarity with a system that doesn't need anything from you because it already knows what to do with you. And that is why people don't just come here, they fight to stay. Since I have lived here, I have watched people fight to stay in Italy. They will rush relationships. They will try to negotiate things that they would never have normally negotiated in their lives just to secure a place inside something that feels like peace. And I often find myself wondering why. Because peace inside of a system that you did not build is not the same as autonomy. And the most dangerous part, you don't actually feel controlled, you feel chosen. Chosen by a culture that historically would not have chosen you. And that feeling is powerful enough to make you ignore what the system is asking of you. If you have not asked yourself the question, what are you willing to give up to feel like you belong inside of it? Then you're not ready. Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to my channel, and let's get into my notes on why it's so hard to quit empire. It's always been really confusing to me how Italy got the reputation for romance, for men who dote on women, when it is one of the most structurally patriarchal societies that exists. But people visit here and they don't want to leave. They will jump through any hoop to stay. They rush relationships just for legitimacy, trying to secure their place inside the idea of la dolce vita. And this version of Italy is constantly amplified. Italy has been presented more like an experience than a culture. Slow living content, curated domesticity, the whole Nona lifestyle aesthetic. Italy has created this current digital nostalgia. It looks like the return, a return to simpler times, a return to something simple, something authentic. But authenticity is one of the most convincing illusions that we have because what you are seeing isn't just culture, it's structure. And the human brain loves structure. It craves safety because complexity is exhausting and ambiguity is exhausting. So when order, predictability, roots present themselves, it feels like a relief. But relief and liberation are not the same thing. And that's where the trap deepens because I cannot tell you how many times when I am talking to people and I tell them I live in Italy and they act as though I won a prize. You're so lucky. And in some ways, I guess it is because it is a privilege to have the freedom to live where you want to live, to have the resources to be able to validate yourself inside the system. But what is the prize for being chosen by a culture that historically would not have chosen you? Is it only the idea of acceptance, belonging, arrival? The feeling of you made it in because so many things depend on your legibility inside the structure, inside the system. But belonging inside of a structure is not the same as changing it. And truthfully, as an outsider, nobody really gives a damn what your opinion is. No one is actually asking you for your perspective. Your presence is most welcome when you align. You should not disrupt, you should not question. And when you don't challenge the foundation, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do by aligning. And that's actually where the boundaries start to blur because you start negotiating not with them, but with yourself. How much do you adapt? How much do you need to soften? How far do you go before you cannot find your way back to yourself? Because adopting traditionalism is never neutral. It comes with expectations, gendered ones, cultural ones, behavioral ones. When I hear women who see themselves as modern women talking about the love of tradition in Italy, I have to wonder why? I have to wonder what is wrong with us? Because the thing that we are glorifying in Nona lifestyle aesthetic is labor, pure, unadulterated woman labor. And it's even more than that because it's alignment with the power structure that never made space for a woman's fullness. And for Black women, this becomes even sharper because the search has always been where can I exist fully? Because what happens in systems like this is that acceptance and assimilation start to blur together. You start to understand that you're welcome, but in a certain way. And you have to pay attention to how slowly you start to reshape yourself to fit inside of it because structure, clarity, your role definition, that's real. That is real structure. But also, what you're giving up is real because fluidity, autonomy, disruption, that is real as well. And respectability in a system requires alignment. And alignment always costs you something. Decolonizing your thinking sounds powerful until you realize what it actually requires. Because deconstruction will cost you your comfort, it will cost you the certainty of knowing where you fit. What becomes so unsettling is seeing how familiar all of these systems are. The conversations, the reactions, the scripts. There's an immigration problem here in Italy. There's an immigration problem in America. One of the things that started to disturb me when I was really trying to understand some of the cultural challenges that Italians have around immigrants, immigration. And the thing that stood out the most to me was how many people repeated the exact same thing over and over again, no matter the age, no matter the education level, they all had the same response. They hadn't thought any deeper than what they were able to repeat. When you probed and asked deeper questions, you could tell they had not considered any other perspective. It's an immigration problem. We were invaded by immigrants from Africa. The numbers don't align with invasion, but they were just repeating the script that empire had given them. What continues to stand out to me, whether you're in the United States or you are in Europe, when you talk to Europeans about racism, you will get very similar responses, whether they were born and bred in Europe or they were born and bred in America, but they see themselves in such different lanes. It's so interesting to examine because there are just some things that have been so trained in Europeans' mentality that they refuse to see it. They are so committed to their role. And that realization forces you to even look inward because you want to start seeing where you are doing the same thing. Where am I repeating the system's thoughts that I thought that I have rejected? And that's when you start to see more things clearly, not just what you do, but also how all of the systems are intertwined and interconnected to support the infrastructure of control. Women coming to Italy because somehow domesticity seems neutral here, because somehow being a domestic with a better aesthetic changes something. Domesticity has never been neutral. It has always been a site of expectation, a place where roles are reinforced. But when it's romanticized, those expectations start to become invisible. It just starts to feel like comfort. It feels like peace. But what it actually is structure that you didn't build, doing exactly what it was designed to do. But why is that so appealing? Because a decolonized life has no clear aesthetic. It is messy, unstructured, unpredictable, and unfamiliar. There are no templates, there are no scripts, there are no roles. So when you encounter something that feels familiar, stable, more real, you're not choosing simplicity, it's pre-definition. And to decolonize inside of a place like Italy is to confront the system from within it. Being inside of it as a foreigner is even more costly because it's a risk to be a foreigner. You could be misunderstood, unaccepted, and ultimately unsuccessful. And that is a true test to even attempt to decolonize within centuries old traditions of compliance. You start to question, what will your personal evolution actually cost you? Because sometimes something can still feel beautiful and you still need to choose to question it. Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to my channel. I look forward to having this discussion with you in the comments, so ciao ciao for now.
Well, this was actually a very short thing. I think that who knows what I'll do, but not streaming will be something I won't be doing. And I'm gonna say shout out to Chocolate Earth. I actually enjoyed it. I actually had to behave myself, which I don't like doing, but hopefully she hears this. She understands that she is worth talking to. Wonderful conversationalist. But we need to go back and start looking at how we do arguments. So salute to the two people who are watching, and I'll be back tomorrow afternoon.